presenter. The next presenter from Hydra is Dr. Rizia Begum Laskar. She's an MA, SAET and PhD and is currently working as an assistant professor in a reputed college. Her PhD topic was negotiating home in Indian English children's literature. She has given several seminars and has written several research papers on varying topics. She is also published author of several non-fiction books, mostly on literature and writing. She is also a trainer and mentor in several faculty development programs and is an active member of Assam College Teachers Association, member of Council for Teacher Education Assam chapter, and member of Management. So I welcome Dr. Rizia today to give us a talk on classical authors. I think she has chosen Jane Austen, and Jane Austen also happens to be one of my favorite authors. So, yeah. Rizia, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
In itself, she is somebody who has, who has been there for generations and generations. I'm just trying to share my screen, but there is some problem with it. Austen has been there for generations and generations. She has been there from. She is somebody who has not written a lot. Okay, she is somebody who has not written a lot, but the problem is not with her having not written a lot, but the fact that whatever she has written it in such a manner that it resonates with us. It resonates with us in many ways. Okay, and I don't know. I've been trying to share my screen, but I'll just share my screen so that I can talk about it a little bit more. Now, Austen has been a part of, I think, from all, any kind of syllabus that we talk about. Okay, any kind of syllabus that we talk about, Austen has been a part of it. Austen has been a part of any kind of book club. Austen has been a part of whenever we talk about literature, especially English literature, Austen has been a part of it for years and years now. And we cannot talk about literature, especially English literature, without we cannot talk about English literature without talking about Austen. Okay, so there is this very famous dialogue by Austen that any man in possession of a fortune is in search of a wife. It is a universally acknowledged fact that any man in possession of a fortune is in search of a wife. So it is also it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So it is also equally true that it is also a truth universally acknowledged that any man, any English literature course is incomplete without Austen, and it is also a truth universally acknowledged that any book club is probably incomplete without Austen. Okay? Any book club that we talk about is probably incomplete without Austen. That is, of course, again an accomplished fact. Now, I actually made a PPT, but there is some problem with it. Let's see if it is possible. I will share it a little later on, but let me just go through the idea. I don't want to go through Austen's birth and Austen's Austen's death and things like that, because that is that everybody knows. That is part of history. That everybody knows. She was the seventh out of 8 child. Her father was a tester, and she actually in comparison with her times, she received a better education in comparison with her times, and her closest friend was her elder sister Cassandra, and we actually come to know a lot about Austen wrote at a time when it was not generally considered, it was not a very good time for women to write. Okay, women are not considered to be. We know that there are a lot of people who even somebody like George Eliot, people did not consider women writers were not considered to be good writers. They were not, even though we know about the Bronte sisters, they were not considered to be good writers. In such a scenario, Austen wrote, and she wrote in such a style, that if you look at the whole, poetry of Austen, you will find that she has written around 6 novels only. Okay, but all those 6 novels are very, very, very popular. Even up till the 200th anniversary of her death is over in 2017. But if despite that, if we find that most of her novels are very popular till date, now there should be some reason. Okay, there should be some reason why she is so popular even up till now. There should be some reason for that. Now, if we go through Austen's novel, what do we find? What we basically find in Austen's novels is that she writes about a society which probably, okay, even though we consider Austen to be writing in 18th century England, early 19th century England, she's writing in an era in which does not have any similarity with us. But then, if we look at the way in which she is writing, you will find that she has got a lot of similarity. She has got a lot of conjunction with our own society. Okay, there's a lot of conjunction with our own society. There's a lot of similarity with our own society. That is so very true. One of the basic things that we see in Austen is that it is her. She writes about. She in a sense she writes in a bubble. She writes in a bubble. One of the main criticism against Austen has been that she has written during a very turbulent time in the British society. But then she has written in a very turbulent time during the British society. But then she is, but then she does not write about any of the issues that are there that has plagued the society during that time, especially the Napoleonic War. Especially the Napoleonic War, we don't find any mention of it in the writings, and that is why this is the main criticism against. This is one of the main criticism against Austen, is that she writes in a time where Jane Austen is dead. She has written during a time in which she does not actually talk about the problems that have plagued her society. One of them being the Napoleonic Wars, or one of them being the imperialistic concerns of that time. Okay? She does not talk about them. This is one of the main concerns of her period. Now, when we go through it, we find that this is something very, very common during her period, and the reason behind this probably is that can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is the house that she actually, the Chawton house that she wrote. This is the place, Jane Austen's house, that she wrote during a large part of her writings were written in this house. Okay, during the last 8 years of her house, she wrote in this place. Okay, now, if we look at the chronology, okay, she started writing more or less. Her most productive age started around 35. In 1811, Sense and Sensibility. 1813, Pride and Prejudice. 1814, Mansfield Park. 1815, Emma. The most important of her works. And then the last two, Persuasion and then Northanger Abbey, were published posthumously after her death, because in 1817 she, along with her sister Cassandra, she moved to Winchester to be nearer to her doctor, and then in July 1817, that is more than 200 years back, Jane died, and she died at a merely very young age of 41. Okay, so what we find is that in Jane Austen, one of the main concern in Austen's work is not the fact that she will talk about the society at large, she will talk about the political concerns, she will talk about the economic concerns. No, she wrote about those very things about which she was knowledgeable. She lived in a very cloistered, very sequestered society. She lived in a society in which marriage and courtship and balls and class distinctions played a very prominent role. And because of this, her novels, most of her novels, except probably Northanger Abbey, we find that this is the main concern, one which we consider to be marriage. And that is why, as I was earlier saying, because the line got disconnected, is that one of the main reasons probably why Jane Austen remains an very, very big influence in Indian society, despite all the differences in time and place and everything, is that she writes about concerns which in many ways is reflected in our own concerns, that of marriage, especially of whom? Marriage especially of daughters. Okay, if you have, like in Pride and Prejudice, if you have 5 daughters, that's a very big concern for any Indian mother, how to get her daughter married and how to get her daughters married in a well-off manner. And that remains, even in the 21st century also, that remains one of the biggest concerns, despite our advancements, despite our development. One of the primary concerns remains marriage. And in Austen, we find that this concern regarding marriage and this concern regarding to settle off well remains one of the primary issues that she talks about in her works. And that is why many Indians probably find reflections of their own society in Austen's works. Of course, Austen wrote in the let's say early 19th century, but then despite that in Regency England, but despite that the conditions that formulated the imperial England was going through a big process of imperialism at that point of time, but the issues that considered imperial England did not find reflection in our work, but the issues that plagued the society, the problems of society, especially of marriage, found reflection in her work. And so the basic premise is that it is a novel of manners, okay? How to conduct yourself in society, social behavior, character. Is mainly set in upper and middle class society. The class distinctions, it is concerned with visits, balls, tea parties, etc. And the main themes remain marriage and the complications of love and friendship. So in Austen's novels, we find that one of the greatest things that we find in Austen's novel is that despite her novels being termed as love stories, we don't find in any of her novels a place for great passion. Okay? She concerns herself with character and conduct, and her romantic elements of happy ending are concerned with, I'll go into this in a detail a little bit later on, is between marriage between the hero and the heroine and the steps through which the hero and the heroine conduct themselves. And of course, irony plays a very big role. Irony plays a very big role because through irony, Austen visualizes the societal relationship, the country neighborhood, and investigates in details the society that she lives in. Now I'll go back to I'll stop sharing this. Now what we find here is that why, if we just take the example of Pride and Prejudice, okay, one of her most famous novels, okay, and I think most of you have read, if not anything else, most of you have read Pride and Prejudice. If not any of our other novels, you have read Pride and Prejudice. We find that the novel does not deal with passionate love, okay, and this is something which finds reflection again and again in Austen's works, okay. Again, in another novel, Sense and Sensibility, more so in Persuasion. Persuasion remains one of our least acclaimed novel, but Persuasion is one of her probably most mature novels, okay. In Sense and Sensibility, in Mansfield Park, in Persuasion, in all these works, what we do find is that in these works, she does not talk about great passion. Okay, the love that is formulated in this novel is it kinds of comes up very slowly, very in a refined manner. It's not about passion. She looks down upon passionate love, and that is reflected in her treatment of Lydia and Wickham in Pride and Prejudice. Then again, Marianne Deshu's love for Willoughby in Sense and Sensibility. We find that she looks down upon passionate love. For Austen, the love that she talks about in her novels, it should go along with the norms and customs of society. And that is why Lydia's elopement is looked down upon. Marianne's, passionate love, and Marianne almost, dying in the process of her love for Willoughby is looked down upon. She has a condescending manner in her treatment of Marianne's love, or of course Lydia's love. But then what we find is that the best example is, of course, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, is that her treatment of it is set in a countryside where there are a lot of rules and regulations. It's full of gossip. It's full of every neighbor knowing one another, and that is why you should conduct yourself within the mannerisms of the society. That is very important. And at the same time, the love that blossoms, it is something which blossoms very slowly. It is not given to violent passions. Elizabeth accepts Mr. Darcy not at one go. She accepts Mr. Darcy after she is assured of his character, after she is assured that he has changed, his pride has taken a beating, he has changed, and only then she accepts Mr. Darcy's proposal. And Elizabeth also, through the same way, she also goes a change. She also has a change in her character. Her prejudices are also melted down through the process of getting to know Mr. Darcy. Similarly with Elinor, and similarly with Anne Elliot in Persuasion. It is a slow process of love which accepts the norms of the society, and that is why her novels are more or less termed as novels of manners. Okay, as opposed to that, we find Lydia, who has no respect for the society, and that is why her marriage is looked down upon. One of the characters, and at the same time, Austen also understands that marriage qualifies as security for women at a point of time in when women did not have any other form of employment, or except for governesses or things like that, when women in respectable society had no other way of living. And that is why we have Charlotte Lucas in Pride and Prejudice, who marries Mr. Collins just for security. Okay, just for the sake of security, she marries Mr. Collins. So what we find in Austen is that if we read Austen from different angles, we find that every reading of Austen gives rise to a new understanding. And I remember reading somewhere a comment by some reader that Elizabeth actually accepted Mr. Darcy only after going through Pemberley. Only after she saw Pemberley, she was astounded by the riches of Pemberley, and that is why she accepted Mr. Darcy. That is one reading. That can be one reading of one reading of Pride and Prejudice. Similarly, what we find is that Austen is probably one of the very few authors who has given rise to a large number of sequels. Okay, a large number of sequels and a large number of rewriting. So we have a large number of novels written about Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy's married life. We have rewriting of Austen's. I probably discussed a few days back the Austen project, rewriting of Austen in the modern times. And then we have a lot of movies, a large number of movies made on Austen. Some of them are we have in India itself. The movie Aisha is based on Emma. Clueless is again based on Emma. Pride and Prejudice is, of course, Pride and Prejudice. One of the earliest rendition of Pride and Prejudice was a Doordarshan serial called Trishna. Okay, so we find that Austen is probably one of the very few authors who have been treated in a diverse number of ways. Almost the other end of the spectrum probably will be Jane Austen and the Pride and Prejudice and the zombies. Okay, so that is one way of looking at Pride and Prejudice. I'm concentrating on Pride and Prejudice because it is one of the novels which is very often prescribed in universities, very often prescribed in English literature classes, and because of the whole because of the whole hullabaloo of the Pride and Prejudice series by BBC of Colin Firth playing Mr. Darcy, it has become a huge hit, and Mr. Darcy probably remains the dream of every young girl. He is in a sense. Mr. Darcy is the ideal of every young girl, a tall, dark, handsome, the brooding hero. In a sense, in many ways, the Byronic hero, the brooding hero who does not talk much, who feels more but talks less, and a tall, dark, handsome, and of course, rich to a very large extent. So these, Mr. Darcy has remained the, the teenage dream of course, many of us. When we first read Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy has remained the teenage dream of many of us who have read Pride and Prejudice for the first time. So what we find here is that Austen writes about a society which surprisingly is replicated in India, and this is something that I find very interesting. It is surprisingly replicated in India because it talks about issues which are very, we all have our neighborhood aunties trying to fix marriages, trying to fix somebody's daughter with somebody's son, looking at the eligibility of daughters for marriages, and probably this is one of the reasons that Pride and Prejudice, when it was rewritten by Curtis Sittenfeld in the Austen project, it was not renamed as eligible, not as Pride and Prejudice. It was renamed as eligibility of marriage. Okay, so marriage remains a very important concern in most of the novels of Austen, except in Emma and Northanger Abbey. In Emma, what we do find is that Emma, Austen herself has said that I have probably created a heroine whom not many people will like, okay? Because Emma is kind of an obnoxious, very selfish kind of a heroine, and we find her falling again and again because of her obnoxious nature. And in Northanger Abbey, of course, Austen has written in order to, it's kind of a parody of the Gothic novels of the time, Mysteries of Udolpho, etc. Okay, Castle of Otranto, Mysteries of Udolpho, Anne Radcliffe's novels. More or less, it is a parody of it, and we find that Catherine Rowland makes a fool of herself because she reads these novels. She reads these novels of Anne Radcliffe more and more, and she makes a fool of herself. But then, other than that, in almost all the novels of, including Mansfield Park, what we do find, and this is something which I find problematic to an extent, not exactly, but to an extent, is that almost all her heroines, get to marry because, especially in Mansfield Park, is because they are good. They are good heroines. They are not revolting heroines. Except, say, Emma, they are not revolting heroines. In Mansfield Park, it is more so. She stays calm and composed. Her life is in ruins, but she stays calm and composed. She does not, Fanny Price does not say anything. Fanny Price does not revolt against anything. Fanny Price never questions anything, and that is why she is, except she gets a hero at the end. Okay, this is, and only in Mansfield Park, probably for the only time that we find a mention of the imperialistic processes of England, where Mr. Bertram goes to the sugarcane plantation in West Indies. Other than that, and that is how we know that his riches comes from this imperialistic process. Other than that, we don't find any mention of it in any of her novels. It is all about tea parties and balls and marriages and things like that. Situations which concern day-to-day life of people, not of any larger measure. Marriage relationship and friendship forms the core of her novels. And surprisingly, Jane Austen has been rewritten, and in many languages, especially in India. You will find that there are many sequels of Jane Austen. Sonia Kamal, a Pakistani author, has written a novel called Unmarriageable, which is again a rewriting of Pride and Prejudice in 21st century Pakistan. Pakistan society. There is a collection of short stories called Austenistan, which is again a rewriting of our works in modern Pakistani society. In India, we have many examples like that, which are rewritten from the perspective of marriage market in India. So Austen remains probably one of the most one of the brightest examples who have claimed their status as a classic author, and who have who remained most classics. If you look at, say, Charles Dickens, okay, but sometimes, not always, but also, say, suppose we look at Hardy, we find that some of the concerns that they wrote about industrial England, Findusacral England, are not exactly acceptable today. Okay, industrial England concerns, of course, we find that concerns there in India, but then in England, probably those concerns, I'm not saying that they are not exactly there, but probably those concerns are not there. But then Austen remains acceptable in all societies, probably for all times to come. That is why Austen remains such a, and especially among women. I don't know if many men have read Austen. I'm part of a readers group on Facebook, and there was only one person who said that he has read Austen. Other than that, it is, I don't know why, probably because it has got to do more with love and marriage. But then I have found that, except for the literature class where the boys it's a compulsory for them to read Austen as part of the syllabus. Other than that, I find that very few men have read Austen. But then if we do read Austen, what we'll also find is that it talks about a society in which men and women have equal contribution, and men and women. Now, Austen makes, through a subtle irony, she makes fun of women, but at the same time, she makes fun of men also. And she, in a very, very subtle manner, she points out the deficiencies in our characters. Okay, both men and women, and that in a sense, it is very necessary that we should read Austen in order to understand. Sometimes, when I read Austen, I find a reflection of my own character in many of the characters, and Austen making fun of those characters, and in a sense she is making fun of me also. At the same time, I have been a fan of Austen for a long period of time. So I have collected Austen memorabilia is again a very big market. It's a very big market. If students do want to, because I believe there are a lot of students out here, if you do want to read Austen, please first thing, of course, I do tell all my students, and I will tell all students out here, the first thing, read the original books. There are only the Watsons, Sanderson, and Lady Susan don't exactly comprise of Austen's works. So there are only 6 works of Austen. You can easily read them. They are not very long books. You can easily read them. You can easily relate to them. So first, do read the original works. It is very necessary that we read the original work, and then later on, you can go through books that talk about Austen. Like there is a book by Karen Joy Fowler. It's called the Jane Austen Book Club. Okay? And it's about a book club which meets and talks about Jane Austen's books, one book or the other, and in the lives of all the characters, one or the other book has a big influence. It influences their lives and how they relate to the characters of Austen, and how the characters of Austen influence their lives. That is one book that I can tell you about. Another book that I can, if you want to have a good knowledge about Austen, is that if you want to read about Austen, is that you can read this book. I don't know if it is there. It's by Claire Tomelin. It's about Austen's biography. Okay, it's about Austen's biography, Claire Tomelin's work. It's the Jane Austen, a life. Claire Tomelin. It's a very good book on Austen's life. One of the most well researched and most well written book on Austen's life. And as Mehboob Sara says, that many modern women writers criticize, including Charlotte Bronte. Okay, Charlotte Bronte criticized Austen because many people feel that, as I have already said, that in talking only about marriage, in talking only about getting a suitable groom, in getting only about getting settled in life, women's lives have become cloistered. There is nothing else. Okay, if I have to say in one line about Austen's work, there is nothing else. It is only about marriage. If I can say, if I can reduce it in that way, it is only about marriage, mainly about marriage. It is about marriage. It is about love and marriage and how to get well settled in life. Okay, it is that remains the main concern in the lives of Austen's characters, and probably that is why one of the reasons why many women writers of the present century and even of the past century also, they have criticized Austen because her framework, her the ambit of her work is very less. Okay? It considers it is like a bubble. She has limited herself to a bubble, and she talks about only this particular kind of character. She does not move away from it. She does not have diversity in that sense. Her characters are predictable in that sense, but the biggest sense in which Austen has remained popular is that she talks. It is because of her wit and irony. It is because of her wit and irony and those famous dialogues that are there. That is why probably Austen remains popular. And for me especially, Austen remains a comfort read. If I don't have any, if I am not feeling very well, if I don't like reading a lot of things, so any heavy thing that I don't want to read, I go back to Austen. I go back to Pride and Prejudice. I go back to Emma or Sense and Sensibility, and somehow that that relieves me of the dark mood, and my reading again progresses. And one more thing, I don't know if this will be visible or not, but this is again Austen memorabilia. If you can see this book, it's a very beautiful book on Pride and Prejudice. The speciality of this book is that I just want to show you is that it contains all the it contains the recipes that are there. Contains the recipes. It has got very beautiful. First thing, it has got very beautiful illustrations. I don't know if you can see this, but at the same time, it has it has the recipes that are available, like this gingerbread gingerbread icebox cake. Okay. The recipes that are available there in this is a series brought out by Puffin Plated. They have also in this series they also have Christmas Carol. So it has the recipes that are there in the book. They have incorporated those recipes also with very beautiful illustrations. And there is a lot of Austen memorabilia. A large number of Austen memorabilia are there. If you are interested in it, you can buy it if you want to buy it. But then my main concern would remain, for at least if I'm addressing the students, is that please do read the original first. Okay, thank you. I hope I have made sense, and I'm sorry for the distractions in between. There was some problem with my network connection, and I hope I have made sense to you. Over to you, Lavanya.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. Lot of things that you brought up and the different versions of the books, the recipes and all that was very interesting actually. So I guess there are a lot of Jane Austen fans out there around the world, not only in India, but I guess everywhere. So beautiful talk on this. Yes, and I just heard that there are a lot of research professors who have joined. Not maybe a lot, but few of them. So I guess your talk was very helpful to them. In this, maybe they could use this for researching on Jane Austen and other works. So thank you. So girls, and I remember. Do you have any questions for Rizia ma'am? We can take small questions. So there's one question on the chat, ma'am, if you would like to answer. Can you
Can you
define?
define?
Yeah.
Jane Austen as a moralist. In many ways, yes. In many ways, I would think Jane Austen is a moralist because, as I've already said, that these transgressions in society, she does not like those. Those transgressions in society, which goes against the norms of the society, she looks down upon them, and that is why the love stories that she mentions are not passionate love stories. If you take the example of Jane herself in Pride and Prejudice, Jane, being the eldest daughter of the society, being the eldest daughter of the family, being reclusive by nature, she does not express her love, because it is looked down upon in society. So in many ways, I would consider Jane Austen as a moralist in many ways.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone?
Hello.
Yes, Mariam.
Good afternoon. I wanted to ask a question that is that Jane Austen's work belongs more to the 18th century neoclassical tradition, or is it a turn of the century romantic tradition?
I couldn't hear the question properly.
Yeah.
Can you repeat and speak a little bit louder?
Does Jane Austen's work belong more to the 18th century neoclassical tradition or to the turn of the century romantic tradition?
Yes, she belongs. Actually, if you look at the date itself, she belongs to more of the turn of the century romantic tradition. But she wrote during the Regency period in England. Her works actually coincide with the Regency period in England, and that is why in her works we find neither the expression of the romanticism nor the expression of the nor the expression of 18th century realistic 18th century writings, but more of if you look at the Regency romances, Regency writing, it was actually based more on society, the Regency society. So we find actually an expression of that in Austen's writing. Okay, there is another question here. Tanisha Mantri, do you think Jane Austen's works are realistic novels, and maybe it is why her work is read and appreciated, even if it was written in a different time period? Realistic, yes, but realistic in a very confined sense, realistic in a very, say, restricted sense, because what you define to be realistic might not be someone else's definition of realism, because as I have already said that we do find that there is a lot of criticism of Austen, that she has never talked about the concerns of the society at that point of time. She has written about the concerns of society at a point of time in a very limited manner, and that is why she has been criticized. But realistic, yes, because she has talked about the concerns of the societal concerns of that point of time, and that societal concerns are, if not exactly in the West, it is still there in the East. So that is why surprisingly Austen is more famous out here in the East than in the West, okay, because her works find reflection in her society. But yes, in a sense, realistic in that sense, okay. And there is another question, I think so. Would Jane Austen have been influenced by the first wave of feminists such as Mary Wollstonecraft? I don't believe it. Okay, personally, I don't believe it because Austen herself was actually different. Slightly difficult to answer. Austen herself was different from the characters she wrote. She never married. She charted out a path for herself. She charted out a path for herself through her writing. So she herself was different from the writings from her heroines, and that is why probably she said that it is only in Emma that she finds slight reflection of herself. Okay, like Emma, she also because if you have read Emma, you'll find that Emma continuously controls the lives of others. Austen herself is continuously controlling the lives of her characters through her writing. But at the same time, in Emma, we find that the authorial intention is Austen herself is doing, but then she is laughing at Emma. She is writing, she is controlling the characters, but when Emma does it, she laughs at them. So Austen's own life was different from her characters, but personally, it is my personal viewpoint, of course, that I don't think so. She was influenced by the first wave of feminism of Mary Wollstonecraft.
Any more questions? Okay, I guess that's the end of the questions probably. So yes, thank you very much, Dr. Rizia. We shall move on to some.
Yeah, thank you from my side also, Lavanya and Hydro, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think you missed one question. Hold on. Sabah Sharif.
Yeah, is it Sabah?
Yes, I just scrolled up. So the question is, how would one describe Jane Austen as a novelist, and would she be as successful as modern writer?
Personally, I think, describe Jane Austen as a novelist. Okay, personally, I think Austen probably would not be so very successful. Writing in 21st century England. Okay, except if we consider, because Austen, in many ways, if we consider the deterioration of Austen, that deterioration of Austen has resulted in things like the Mills and Boons. Okay, that is my personal opinion. The tall, dark, and handsome brooding hero and love stories and etc. So, in say 21st century England or 20th century England, I don't think so Austen would have been a very successful modern writer. But in countries like India and Southeast Asia, I would say that Austen would still remain a very popular writer, would be very successful as a modern writer, because she still talks about those very concerns, and it will depend. We cannot actually foresee things. It will depend on how she would have written as a modern writer. Okay, how she would have written as a modern writer, how she would have written in an Indian context, how she would have written, how her writings would have changed, because of course writers change with the times. Okay, how she would have changed with the changing concerns of marriage and changing concern of love interest in 21st century England, or in 21st century in the 21st century world. And that is why, as I've said, that when you read a rewriting of Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth, set in 21st century America, the whole concept of marriage has been changed. It is no longer marriage. It is live-in relationship. It is I just don't want to give the details, but Bingley is no longer the catch. Bingley is participating in something like what we have we have those reality shows where the Swayamvars are held. Bingley is participating in that kind of a show where he chooses Jane. Okay, so according to the tendencies of the modern times, the writer would probably also would have changed. So we don't exactly know, but I personally feel that Austen would have remained a very popular writer, as she is so in Southeast Asia.